Hey, welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. How are you today? Hope you all had a happy Easter. We did. It's a beautiful day here. Hope it is where you are. If you hear some kids playing in the background, it's the kids throwing their baseball around. You, I'm sure, are familiar with the old adage, the old KISS principle, right? About keeping it simple. That's what I want to talk about today. I think that people have a tendency to get a little overcomplicated in all of the things that they think about, that they talk about, that they plan about regarding preparedness. I was going through. Oh man, do you have Bradford pears where you live? They are the trash tree of the tree world. We've got them all over the place here, and I just had one of their little flowers fall in my coffee. They are trash, and I've got 3 of them because when they developed this development, they put in a bunch of those things. Some cities outlaw them, and now our city has put a bounty on them. If I cut one down and take a picture of myself next to its dead body laying on the ground, they'll give me a free tree. So anyway, my brother, I was going through some stuff. My brother came upon some things of our dad's, and I'd said that I'd like them because I gave them to him. And many of you are familiar with this set, but maybe some of you aren't, and that is the Foxfire series. You all familiar with the Foxfire books? You know, these I picked these up. I bought the first one for my dad. I don't even know when. I guess I could have pulled one of these out and found out when they were published, but I didn't. It was back in the 70s sometime. You know, my dad is the one who started teaching me about preparedness and about survival, and I don't know if I'll get into that today, but down on our family farms, by the time I was 8, he was teaching me to shoot a bow and arrow, and then how to throw a knife and how to throw an axe, and how to survive out in the woods, and I developed a great interest in that from a real early age. All through scouting. Scouting back then wasn't like it was today. It's so organized today, and there's some problems. I don't suggest scouting today, but back then it was just a bunch of people and a bunch of boys and their dads who went out in the woods and did stuff. And it was about being prepared, right? The old motto, be prepared. So my dad is the one that first introduced me to the whole concept of preparedness and survival and things like that. And so that's why I gave him the Foxfire books. If you've never read them, they're very interesting. It's essentially how people lived before all the modern conveniences. It'll teach you how to render a hog and everything like that. Things that maybe you don't need or want to know, but it teaches you many other things as well. Well, I'm not here today to just promote the Foxfire books, but the idea that simplicity has been lost in so-called preparedness. There's far too much out there about the latest piece of gear, the latest, just everything, and it consumes some people. And I'm not the only one who has said this. I've heard others say this, that it hurts in the sense that people who feel that consuming or buying is preparing, they have lied to themselves, thinking that now they have done what it takes. I've got a bunch of stuff, now I'm ready. And even though I had a gun that was serviceable and no problems, well, now there's a new one out there, and I've got to get that. And even though I've got a $20 knife that, it's, I'll tell you what, the pocket knife that I carry, I've carried it for probably 12 years, 10 years. I don't think I paid more than $12 for it. Still got it, still use it, haven't lost it, haven't broken it, done everything in the world. And yet, how many people out there say, well, I don't know, there's this latest knife out there, I need it, and it's $150, and I'm going to get it because I want the latest knife, right? I guess if I were doing a bunch of gear reviews, then maybe I'd buy these things. But probably not. I wouldn't, because I think that it's silly. We live in a complex world. But as I've said, mainly over on Patreon, and that reminds me, I'll say something about that in a minute. Many times we can see, and I've talked about over there certain groups who have fought complexity with simplicity. And very often, simplicity is the solution to complexity. And in this, we can get into the guerrilla fighters and things like that. I've mentioned over there the IRA and organized crime and things like that. And when they were successful, it was because they went back to a simple way, not a more complex way. What I just put over on Patreon was because we have developed, our membership on Patreon has just exploded over the last week or so because of some things that I've put up and kind of a different direction that I've decided to go. It's still going to have all of everything that we put on YouTube here. It's going to have all the preparedness, but it's I saw that there was a great interest in the natural ways, natural healing, natural health, things like that, and a lot of questions, a great interest. So I've just put one up over there talking about that. Many of you don't know that I was at one time a great student of this stuff. I got busy with the world and have kind of fallen away from it lately. Kelly is a real a resource on this. She knows so much about it. And someday I'm going to talk her into being on here with me and covering this stuff. Until that day, I will probably just have to pass some of it on secondhand. But one of the most important things, if you've heard me talk about integrative preparedness, what does that mean? It means being able to survive and do well, as my books talk about. My books down here, if you'd like to read them, the link is down there. You can buy them off Amazon or from me. Being able to survive a collapse of any kind and be able to do well, independent of all of the interdependent systems over which you have little or no control. Okay, energy delivery, medical delivery, all these things. Food, water, electricity, gas, the ER, all of these things. If the system goes down, all that stuff's gone. And real preparedness, true preparedness, integrative preparedness, meaning all these things are integrated together, enables you, or should enable you, to survive without those systems. And what's happened over the last 2 years has shown us how important it is to be able to live outside that system, hasn't it? Yeah. It came in ways that many of us didn't necessarily foresee, but it came. And even though we may see kind of an ebb and flow, many of us, feel that it could still be getting worse. And that makes the ability to support ourselves, survive without that support of those systems, makes it all the more important. So over there on Patreon, and I invite you. Why do I invite you over to Patreon? Okay, and the link is down there. For those of you who don't want to, that's all right. The reason that I do is because there's so much more on Patreon. For those who are truly serious and want to get into this stuff more, there's so much more over on Patreon. And we'll be adding a lot of stuff. I will be adding a lot of stuff about the old ways, the simple ways, the natural ways to stay healthy rather than try to get healthy. It's like the old, it's better to be ready than get ready. Well, it's better to stay healthy than try to get healthy after you've become unhealthy. And if you are unhealthy, there are ways to take it back naturally. I'm not going to say it's, in every situation, but in the basic things of life. People used to live 90, 100 years old without ever going to a doctor. And I see that it's really sad when I see how many people from their 40s and 50s on up are on a bunch of meds because kind of the life that they've lived, the lifestyles that they live, the life that they've chosen. And many will say, well, I didn't choose it, I had to do it. No, there's always a choice. You choose it, and even if you live a high-stress life, I told a story about myself yesterday or the day before, I forget which. It might have been over on Patreon. There is a way to come back naturally, and you will improve the quality of your life beyond belief. Keeping it simple. Rediscovering the simple ways, the natural ways. And if you've never known it, discovering it for the first time. Many people, if they're under 40, they don't remember a time when doctors weren't everything, for the most part. I mean, when I was a kid, nobody ever went to a doctor. I remember hearing one time back in the 70s or 80s, I don't know, that the medical field was going to become the biggest segment of our society. I thought, well, how could that be? I don't know anybody who ever goes to a doctor. I never go to a doctor. I went to a doctor twice. I broke my arm twice, my elbow. But other than that, why would you go to a doctor? Only really old people go to a doctor, and I had really old people in my family that never went to a doctor. So I didn't understand that. Well, we kind of see now that it was all part of a plan, and now it's difficult to stay away from it, right? Well, you have to stay away from it. You have to get out of it and stay away from it, unless you have things that cannot be dealt with naturally, as from diet and sleep and drinking the right water and being good. So I'm not recommending that anybody stay away from medical intervention if it is something that only medical intervention can take care of. But other than that, too many people just use it as a way to keep surviving, stumbling through life one day at a time, from doctor visit to doctor visit, and that's no way to live. Seemed like there was one more thing that I was going to say here. If it comes to me in the next couple of seconds, I'll put it in. If not, I'll slide it in some other place. But hang on no, I thought I was going to go have to do something. Anyway, keep these things in mind. Simplify your life. See how many of the things that you're dealing with are really important enough to get yourself all zoomed up about. Think about simplicity in your preparations, because the more complex you get, the more room there is for error, for system breakdown, for whatever. So realize that. I'm going to pause you for just a second, and I'll be right back. I don't know if I paused you or not. So I won't try to remember what I was going to remember, but that's what I wanted to say today. Relax. See how you can improve your life with taking the stress out, keeping your eye on the ball, not letting the crowd and the noise around you get you distracted. Realize that your life, your preparedness, the preparedness of those who depend on you is serious business. And it's best done one methodical step after another methodical step, not getting wrapped up in the extraneous or the gewgaws and the bubbles and things like that. Because a simple life really is and can be the most enjoyable life there is, wherever you live. It doesn't matter whether you're in the country, the city, the suburbs, wherever. You live a simple life and understand what's important in life, and you're going to be a happy person. So anyway, that just reminded me, if you've never read the Foxfire books, I think they're pretty pricey nowadays. I think when I bought the first one for my dad, it was either $4.95 or $7.95 or something like that. They're enjoyable to read. It's the way that our ancestors used to live, and it's the way that many of us, me included, can look back and say, yeah, that's how my grandparents lived. And you know what? They were pretty happy. And maybe some of you even live this way yourself. And if you did, leave your comments down there. Share your experiences with us. And I always say, I claim to have the smartest commenters in YouTube land, and I stand by that. But leave your comments and your observations on this, because I'd love to hear them. And not only would I like to hear them, other people can learn from them as well. So this is one of the ways that you kind of contribute to the community around you. And if you'd like to get more of this information, because I'm going to be putting a lot more out. Do join us over on Patreon. You do get a lot more over there. And now that I see that people really want to learn more about, the one thing I just learned this morning. Did you know that you can use orange peels, dried orange peels, for tinder? Kelly was just reading through all the, she makes soaps, and she was just going through a recipe for some special soap for mechanics, and so she was over there reading the different things about orange peels, and she said, did you know you can use orange peel for tinder? I said no. Well, she told me all about it. There is so much that's fascinating about use of natural ways that it just blows your mind. So if you want to hear more about that, come join us. Be one of us over on Patreon. And I'll let you go with that. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. And living simply is living well. In many cases, living well doesn't mean having all the big stuff and the new stuff. Living well is how you feel during the day, at the end of the day, in the morning when you wake up, to enjoy the day that God gave you. So you all have a good day. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.